Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from All Off Road. I hope you guys are well. It has been 1.5 years since the Landcruiser Stage 2 build video. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already done so. Since then, the cruiser has clicked over 300,000 kilometers. 300,000 kilometer anniversary of the cruiser in the Simpson Desert. Few kilometers from GeoSurvey Hill. It has served me very well without any major issues. However, I have made a few changes since the Stage 2 build video, and some of the stuff I installed previously didn't work out 100%. So I thought I'd fill you in with what has changed. In part 1 of this 2-part series, I will let you know why I got rid of the rapid power alternator and exchanged it again for an M2K alternator. I will tell you how I went with the Solve custom springs for the Landcruiser and why I installed Airbag Man helper airbags. I will also tell you why I changed my 2 DCS lithium under bonnet batteries for another set of DCS lithium under bonnet batteries and tell you how that all has worked over the past 2 years. But before I get into that, let me give you a quick overview where I have been with the cruiser in the past 1.5 years and where the car has gotten me in and out of. In my videos, I'm always truthful and show the good and the bad. So not surprisingly, there were a few things which really didn't work out on these Landcruiser, and after I tested them and realized the shortcomings or issues which would not work how I use the gear, I changed it. So let's now have a look into the things which I changed on the cruiser and why. So one of the things I changed again is my alternator. If you remember, initially I had a 270 amp hour alternator from M2K in the US. However, I changed it out against a rapid power fully sealed alternator for two simple facts. I didn't really think too much when going 270 amps. And once I then switched to lithium and have lithium as my starter battery and lithium also charged from the alternator, 270 amps for my 2 100 amp hour DCS was really borderline what I could do. So I wanted to go a little bit smaller. And even though I don't drive much through mud unless I really have to, I thought a completely sealed unit like a rapid power would be good. However, the rapid power, while the unit and everything looked pretty good, it really never worked out for me.
Tell us, Stefan, what's happening, mate? What are we doing to the cruiser?
The cruiser got renamed Screechy. Since I have the rapid power alternator in, it lasts for 3-4 days and then it starts screeching and won't stop for a while. So we had new belts put on in Port Augusta, tightened it again, but over the past 3-4 days it's again loose. So we're trying now to retension that thing and hopefully stop screeching, and then when I'm home I have to find a better solution. Rapid power unfortunately removes the OEM tensioning system for the alternator, and with the rapid power alternator I only had issues with my belt squealing. So I couldn't drive for more than 300-400 kilometers and my belts would be squealing. Then I had to retension the belts, and because the OEM tensioning system was taken out of the loop, you pretty much had only 2 bolts, and then you needed a big lever bar and tension it with 2 people from the engine block. Very cumbersome process. You needed 2 people, and again it only lasted for another 200-300 kilometers. Rapid power initially was good and we tried a few things, but really nothing solved the issue. When I looked more into it, I figured out that the OEM tensioning system you can't take out on these alternators or on the 105. Number two, I find that the tightening bolt was far too small. I stripped that with a tiny little hand wrench, so that was not a good solution. After giving Rapid Power nearly a year to come up with a solution, to be honest, I grew a bit impatient. Rapid Power also seemed like didn't want to have much to do with it anymore and became fairly unfriendly. So I decided to rip that all out again. So the Rapid Power alternator is gone, and I replaced it with the M2K alternator, which I found quality-wise very good, and I know that they also retained the factory OEM tension system. I didn't go with the 270 amp alternator, I went with a 180 amp alternator, and yeah, that is in. We strengthened the alternator bracket because that is something, or actually the only thing, which went wrong with the 280 amp alternator. The bracket broke on the canning trip. That was a little bit matter of how the housing was designed. And to the credit of M2K, I sent them some pictures, and within 2 weeks from M2K I had a new front housing which solved that issue. But anyway, I didn't want to take that risk again, so we strengthened the bracket a little bit, especially because I do a lot of corrugation. And yeah, the 180 amp hour alternator is in, no issue whatsoever. I think on the Cruiser, if you run high output alternators, the belts, the two V-belts are not the best solution for it. But now I have to tension the belts every service, like it was before really, and I can easily tension it whenever I need myself. It's a matter of 5 minutes really. So yeah, I highly rate them, and the customer service of M2K in comparison to what I experienced with Rapid Power was absolutely brilliant. So that's at idle, that's at high idle. 94 amps going into the two batteries, so that's pretty good with the M2K alternator. So let's talk about suspension. Most of you know I have an Icon 2.5 inch remote reservoir adjustable shock set in here. I also had Slinky springs. However, my Slinky springs broke after 1.5 years. There was no support from the distributor, and that is also why I don't really show that system, because I would not purchase it again. However, I need a replacement for the springs. Overall, I was pretty happy with the Icon shocks, so no issue with that. Solve Off-Road created then a pair of custom springs based on the samples I gave them from the Slinky, and I have them now in the car. They seem to be stronger because none has broken, but they're also a little bit softer. So if I'm fully loaded, and that is certainly an issue because I'm anywhere between 3.6 and nearly 4 tons if I'm fully loaded for the desert, I still bumped out from time to time. So that is why I then looked for solutions and looked into airbags. Not something I ever had before, airbags. Don't ask me why, it never really appealed to me. I looked a bit around, found Airbag Man and one other company. I contacted Airbag Man. They provided me a set of helper airbags for the rear. I didn't pay for that, but I share my feedback with you about it. And so far I'm very happy. I haven't done any big trip now with it, but a few smaller trips, New South Wales, high country trip, and I think I tested them fairly well, and that's brilliant. So I took the rear progressive bump stops out and now have the airbags in, and I have not managed to bump the car out. And believe me, I tried. And some of the New South Wales high country tracks we drove, they were pretty well suited to bump your car out. So far that seems to be working very well, but I keep you updated over the next year. So if you ask me what I would run in regards to suspension, if I would do it again, I wouldn't buy Icon. By the way, the Icon shocks I had now completely rebuilt by a good mate of mine, and they were gone after admittedly 80,000 hard kilometers. I think that's a pretty good lifespan I got out of that oil and so on. They were rebuilt. They're like new, but Icon really doesn't have any support here in Australia. Getting parts, not the easiest. So if I do it again personally, I get custom springs done exactly for my load rating, and on top of that I would run the same shocks I had in the Jeep, which are King 2.5 remote res adjustable shocks. So that are the changes I would make with the suspension. So let's talk batteries. If you follow my build, you know that I changed roughly 3 years ago to two 100 amp hour DCS lithium batteries under the bonnet. At the time, most people said, oh, it can't be done and lithium can't be under the bonnet. I think Andrew St. Pierre White made a big video that that is not possible, that you can't winch off it. However, I have the DCS lithium now under the bonnet for 3 years, and they have never really let me down in any of my driving. However, this is not the same set, so let me quickly explain. The first set of DCS I had was passive balanced, and that was 2-3 months before they changed over to an active balancing system. I had the first set in the car for a little bit over a year and really never an issue with the battery. The Bluetooth system and the app, look, that was probably the weakest part of the battery. It wasn't always 100% accurate. After a year's time, DCS asked me whether I would like to review the newer batteries, because really the passive balancing system was out, that wasn't sold anymore, so there wasn't really much point continue running that battery system when no one could buy it anymore. So we pulled the passive balance batteries out and we did a capacity test. And to be honest, that wasn't too crash hot. I had around 70% capacity left after a bit over a year. Paul from DCS mentioned that they would come up again after quite a few complete charge and discharge cycles. And that has proven to be correct, because I didn't get rid of the batteries. The batteries are now with Joe from JS Auto Electrics, my auto electrician who does all my auto electrical work. And he still has them in his camper trailer, and we're monitoring them and will keep you updated how they go. So he since deep discharged them 10, 15, 20 times, fully recharged them, and so far they have recovered another 10%. Okay, but anyway, so let's put that aside. These batteries went into Joe's car, and then we put into the Cruiser two of the newer 100 amp hour DCS, which are active balanced. So these new active balance batteries I had in the car again for a bit over a year. I did desert trips with them, I did South Australia, I did Googs Trek, I did desert cross country, performed flawless, no issue. However, again, the Bluetooth app wasn't really accurate, and Paul had an issue there with one batch, and I was actually supposed to return them, get the firmware upgraded and then put them back in. But with COVID and all the other stuff going on, we somehow never managed until really before Christmas now. I wanted to send the batteries back to DCS. I had a 2-week time window. He would flash the firmware, send them back to me, and I would have been ready for the trip. However, again, COVID and transport, the batteries were standing at Joe's for over 2 weeks and were supposed to be picked up, and that just didn't happen. When we realized then that would not happen before the trip, Paul sent me, top customer service from DCS, Paul sent me a second set, and now I have a new set in here, and I sent the old set back. However, we did a capacity test obviously of the active balance set, because that would have been deciding factor. If the active balance set also would have lost say 30%, I would have rethought my under bonnet solution. You know, I probably would have put the batteries in the back. However, happy to report the batteries I had a bit over a year on here, active balance, did not lose anything. So actually I didn't do a capacity test when I got them, but when we tested them after a year, both of the batteries still had 100 amp hours. So I couldn't really see that anything was lost. Yeah, now I have the latest set of the batteries in. DCS, by the way, also has a brilliant 130 amp hour set now. which you can buy in a set, and it has in one battery actually an MPPT solar controller. So very neat. And we try to put them here in the Cruiser, but they are not really designed, number one, for the 100 series. People have managed to get them in, and if you put a lot of effort in, you can. But we placed them, we looked at it, and we decided not to do it, simply for the fact that reliability is more important. And to get them in with my car, with the front-mounted intercooler hoses and so on, we would have had to take both battery plates out. We would have had to hammer the floor down. It wouldn't have an even flat area for the battery to sit on. And also it would be very close to my hoses and pipes. So I decided, unfortunately, not for my 105, and we went with the stock 100 amp hour batteries, but that pretty much does everything. They are charged from my M2K alternator. I show you here some figures how much I get in. By the way, that's also one thing. The M2K alternator has far higher idle output than the rapid power. Idling the M2K, I get around 80 amps into the batteries. So that is brilliant. And if the batteries are empty and I drive, I get around 120 amps into the battery. So around 60 per battery, and that means they are charged very, very quickly again. So yeah, the battery is under the bonnet with the Victron battery disconnect, and I still also have a Victron solar controller for my fixed mounted red arc solar panel on the roof, which I now also have for 2.5 years. That's the longest solar panel survival rate for me on the roof, 2.5 years. My semi-flexible and cheaper glass panels never lasted longer than a year for me. Don't ask me why. Anyway, the red arc is lasting now. So yeah, the lithium setup, perfect for me. I absolutely love it. And I would never go back to anything else, you know. I mean, if that wouldn't have worked out in regards to capacity loss, I would have moved the lithium to the back. But it means the long-term test is still out. However, a bit over a year, desert trips, very hot days, no capacity loss with the active balance system, I think that is pretty good. I'm very happy with that. I have been testing the Bluetooth integration and the corresponding app for a little while now, and so far it seems to work as expected. The state of charge is working. It now also has a time remaining feature, and yeah, I'm quite happy so far, but I will update you if that changes after more testing. This brings me to the end of part 1. In part 2 I will tell you the trial and tribulations with the ramped custom housings, and why I changed from the UltraVision light bars to the laser lamp light bars. I will show you some custom fabrication I had made for a travel platform to replace 2 of my rear seats, and also for some custom underbody protection for the Landcruiser. I will also update you on some of the long-term tests, like my GME UHF radio, my BFG KM3 tires, the Rasla bar work, and I will tell you why I probably would not purchase another Selfie Go booster. And last but not least, I will also keep you updated in regards to the 2 Super Pack awnings I have on the Landcruiser. So don't miss the next video, and make sure you like, share and subscribe.